I remember I was watching episode 18 of Monster a couple years ago, when one of the side characters caught my eye. He wasn't an important character, and he was only there for the one episode. I don't even remember his name. His only importance to the story was his effect on Nina, another character. Still, I remember him. I remember that he took 5 sugars in his coffee. I remember that he always cried when he watched romantic movies. None of these details were necessary for his role in the story. He could have served his purpose just fine without them. But it's these extra descriptors, this extra bit of personality, that made Rousseau, a former hitman turned restaurant owner, seem so human. It's an amazing thing for a show to make you empathize with a character, but it's a much more amazing thing for that show to evoke empathy for an episodic character, one that's only present for the one episode. With such limited time to develop, they usually become just token cardboard cutouts, generic vessels used solely for the purpose of developing the protagonist. This is not the case in Violet Evergarden. If you've yet to watch Evergarden this season, do it! It's available on Netflix in Canada and America. I'm not sure about other countries, but it is well worth the watch. The series tells the story of Violet Evergarden, a war veteran struggling to adjust to life outside of battle. She takes a job as an auto-memory doll, a scribe of sorts who acts as a ghostwriter for other people. And she takes it because she wants to know what her commanding officer meant when he told her he loved her. It's a beautiful and poignant story, and its episodic nature is where it shines brightest. Every episode centers around a new character who's employed Violet's services. In this way, the show really isn't about Violet so much as the people she's helping, and how those people in turn affect her. For a show like this to succeed, the secondary cast has to be compelling and relatable. Since we only get them for 22 minutes each, it can be difficult to make the audience care. But Evergarden employs several strong writing techniques to bypass this idea. All the clients it introduces have a dark backstory, something they regret, something that happened in the past. Since the series doesn't have to show the events chronologically, they can introduce this element after you've already become invested in the character. This makes their trauma all the more sympathetic. Take Leon Stephanotis from episode 6. He's introduced as a shy, brooding character, but slowly it's revealed why he acts that way. We find out from the other scholars that he's an orphan, and eventually Leon explains to us how he lost his parents. As an audience, we can't help but sympathize with his struggles. His closed-off persona and dislike of the dolls sparks our curiosity in the beginning, so by the time his backstory is revealed, we were already invested in and intrigued by the character. Another similarity all the side characters share is an initial misconception. This misconception could be about the world or about another person. Over the course of their episode and their time with Violet, they come to understand that the way they viewed this issue was incorrect. To talk about Leon again, he was convinced that love made people foolish. Considering his background, it's easy to see why. But after spending his time with Violet, he comes to realize that maybe he was wrong, that maybe love isn't foolish. He decides to stop waiting around for his parents to return, and heads out to find them himself. In episode 4, Princess Charlotte is worried that her fiancé doesn't really love her, but Violet helps her reveal his true feelings. Anne in episode 10 is laboring under the assumption that her mother doesn't want her around, which couldn't be further from the truth. She even blames herself for her mother's illness. But Violet talks to her, telling her that it's not her fault. It's only after her mother has passed that Anne realizes why her mother didn't want her in the room during Violet's visits, and it's a tearjerker. It's not just the side characters that learn something over the course of the episode. Violet herself grows through the series thanks to her encounters with the secondary cast. Thanks to her time with Luculia in episode 3, she learns how to express the proper emotions in her letters and manages to graduate from the auto-memory doll training school. But what really helps Violet is seeing how her clients were affected by the war. Most of the side characters were touched by the war in some way or another. Luculia lost both of her parents, and her brother resorted to drinking away his guilt because he couldn't save them. Princess Charlotte was forced to mature and make a marital decision in order to keep the peace, even though she was just a child. Leon lost his father when he was deployed to occupied territory. And this all culminates in episode 11 when Violet has to write the final farewells of a soldier on his deathbed. When the story starts off, Violet has just been discharged from the military and has no way to cope in this new world she finds herself in. She has no idea how to live in a world outside of the battlefield, so she represses her feelings the same way she always has. Claudia even tells her that she's burning with the weight of the lives she's taken, but she brushes them off and moves on. Violet isn't the only one with poor coping mechanisms. There's Spencer, of course, with his drinking habit, Leon shutting everyone out, and Dietfried blaming Violet for his brother's death. But through her encounters with others who were affected in similar ways, Violet learns to confront her traumas and regrets head-on and make peace with them. She realizes Claudia was right, she is burning, and with her newly developed empathy, that hits her hard, but allows her to grow as a person. To go a little bit into the philosophy of the show, since that's kind of a thing, this outlook on overcoming your past is similar to Nietzsche's idea of amor fati. It's the idea that you shouldn't want to erase your past, but rather accept it, the good and the bad, and learn from it. After all, amor fati does translate as the love of one's fate. Instead of lying awake at night regretting your past actions, you have to come to terms with them, even embrace them, so you can finally move on. At the end of episode 9, Violet asks Claudia if she even has the right to be an auto-memory doll, if after all the pain she's caused, if she even deserves to live. And this shows great growth of her character, since in the beginning she had no idea of the burden she was shouldering, the burden of all the lives she had taken. Claudia responds with,
してきたことは消せない。でも、君が自動式人形としてやってきたことも消えないんだよ。バイオレット・エヴァーガーデン。
But enough about that, let's go back to the delusions of the side characters. There's something so human about these misconceptions the characters have. There's a reason that characters like Kirito and Sakimoto aren't relatable. They're too perfect, too overpowered, too flawless. And real people aren't like that. Real people have shortcomings and weaknesses. Princess Charlotte is a smart and beautiful leader, but she's also an emotional crybaby. Oscar Webster is a famous, skilled playwright, but he's also a drunken recluse. The side characters' misconceptions and flaws are what make them relatable to the viewer, and because each one of them is so different, there's something in the series for everyone to relate to. And there is at least one character in Violet Evergarden that will resonate with you. Whether you felt lonely like Leon has, or whether you've experienced a loss like Oscar Webster. The characters' dark backstories evoke the viewer's sympathy, however it's their flaws and relatability that evoke their empathy. But it's not just their backstories and shortcomings that make them memorable, it's their determination that makes them so compelling. Despite their shortcomings, the characters never stop trying to achieve their goals. Even though she knows she's not suited to being a doll, Erica continues trying to improve herself. Even though she's not in demand with the citizens, Iris still aspires to becoming Linden's most popular auto-memory doll. Being surrounded by this much perseverance in the face of adversity is why Violet was able to go on living after she heard about the Major. She'd seen Oscar continue to move forward despite losing everything. She'd seen her fellow doll's determination, and it resonated with her. When Iris and Erica send her that letter, showing concern for her, she realizes that just like the other people she's met, she too has been laboring under a misconception. She thought that with the Major gone, there was no one else who cared about her, no one who cared if she lived or died. But their letter showed that that couldn't be further from the truth. In short, if this series shows us anything, it's how incredible supporting characters can be when done right. It's been a while since I've cried while watching an anime, and I never imagined I would fall to pieces over a character I got to know for only 22 minutes. I haven't loved a supporting cast this much since Monster. In episodic shows like Mushishi and Death Parade, supporting characters are everything. And in the case of Violet Evergarden, they beautifully serve their purpose of indirectly characterizing the protagonist, and they even add a little extra sugar on top. So, what did you think? Did you enjoy Violet Evergarden? Did you like the supporting cast as much as I did? Feel free to let me know down in the comments. I actually had people vote on the topic of this video over on my Twitter, so you can follow me there in case I do that again in the future, link in the doobly-doo. If you like this video, you can subscribe or check out my last video on the philosophy of Steins Gate. Like, share, and all that jazz, and I'll see you guys next week. Goodbye. Also watch Violet Evergarden. Really though.